We can make it on the floor, never dance like this before. We don't talk about life wants you. We can take it on the floor, never dance like this before. We don't talk about it. We can make it on the floor, never dance like this before. We don't talk about it, life wants you. Hey, Danny. We actually start at 7:15, so I just started the room early just to see what everyone's up to.
So, man.
Hey, Danny. How's it going with you guys as a Kentucky deal? Or Tennessee.
It's going. We haven't done much really because we're like working on. Well, we're trying to get financing. The lender hasn't even asked me for my pay stubs and whatnot yet, and it's been a week and a half already.
You follow up with that lender yet? What's going on there?
Yeah. We've been messaging her like about this XYZ, and then she still hasn't. She's like, "We'll connect, next few days." It's kind of odd.
Okay. Have you talked to other lenders just in case?
No. We locked in a rate already because it was like 2.99%.
Well, that's 2.99%. Kentucky? What? Or Tennessee?
No, Tennessee.
Tennessee.
Wait, is this a regular conventional loan?
Yeah. It's a second home vacation mortgage.
Oh, second home. Let's count how many times he's going to say Kentucky today.
Yeah. Am I on Zoom or am I on?
You are on Zoom.
but I can't see who joined and whatnot.
It's the new webinar version one, so it looks a little different.
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
So is the plan just to make everyone into panelists or something then?
It's just to make 3 people panelists and then everyone else can talk. That's like the webinar feature. But I don't know if there's a way to make it like Zoom chat the way in the past. But then the issue is we can't update everyone with the emails about when it happens. That's why we set webinar, because webinar is the only one that can do that for some reason.
All right, and all questions involved. Is that a real tattoo or did you draw it on?
I got it when I was 18. So.
He has all the Asian stereotypes. Come on. The fanny pack, and the arm tattoo.
Does anyone else in the chat have tattoos?
I'm too chicken for one, but I wonder who has one.
I don't know how to make people. Oh, I'm just gonna allow everyone to talk, but there's only like 3 panelists technically.
I don't have.
How are you letting them to talk though?
I don't know. Makes it easier to ask questions too, just in case.
Oh no, I mean like I don't have that ability to let people talk. That's the thing.
Oh, really? Let me see. Okay, what about now? I'm gonna make you co-host.
Yes. All right, I'm gonna get John to talk. Yes. Okay.
Didn't you guys make everyone co-host that Friday?
Yeah, because we didn't figure how to use this yet.
Annie, what's your email again? Let me see if I can automatically add you as alternative host in the future.
Okay, I'll just dump it in here. I just realized that's a bad idea, huh? Oh, whatever. It's just you guys. I put my personal email in there. Whatever. You guys won't stalk me. It's all right. It's all right.
All right. About to sign you up for so many spam emails, Annie.
You're just gonna sign me up for all this coupon stuff, aren't you?
Yeah.
What coupons?
Who knows? Soko Glam. I like that one. I wouldn't mind those.
Yeah, I can't see who's on the call.
I don't think you can see anymore. I can, but I don't think you guys can as attendees.
I was on a Zoom call yesterday. I was able to see like the
No,
whole thing.
it's our setting because right now we
see.
switched from regular Zoom to the webinar version.
I see.
And so it's not as cool, but I see a lot of people are in here actually.
Nice.
Oh, good.
Yeah. Raise your hand if you want to talk. Just makes it easier.
Why? We'll just make everyone talking. Jenny, say hi.
Hi.
Yeah, you're permitted to talk now. Yeah. You have to like allow people to talk. It's weird. Like that's.
We're just trying to be respectful because,
Yeah.
I am at least.
Yeah.
I don't like to just be like a loudmouth, even
Yep,
though.
Kenny's right. Clubhouse style.
Yeah, I hate it when people do that. To be honest, that's I wait until someone's like done talking, and then I'll interject.
Makes sense. Oh, also fun story, y'all. I got a job again. I sold out. I don't know if I told everyone. I went like full real estate for like 4 months, and then I got pulled back in. I sold my soul again.
Oh, what kind of job?
Do you know what Brookfield Asset Management is?
Brookfield. Do they do assisted living?
No, Brookfield is like a publicly traded company.
Oh.
Yeah. I'm their first data scientist, so I get some free data stuff to mooch off of, basically.
Sweet.
Hey, nothing wrong with another stream of income.
Yeah.
Pretty much. Yeah.
And as long as the data helps the Sarah group out, we can sell him out. This is fine.
Exactly. Yeah, it's fine. Give up my soul. That's fine. Whatever.
For us, for Sarah group, that's it.
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of which, if anyone needs help with skip tracing, I built a script recently, and I've been putting together a lot of data from different cities. So I wonder if I can share my screen right now. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So like for example, yeah. So I just pulled together something for Taylor, Texas, for somebody who asked it, and I can go down here, and then I have the skip trace information as well as all the addresses and owner names and phone numbers and emails, and then the information on the property. So if anybody needs help with their city, I can help put something together.
Oh, wow. I'd be down for that, Nelson.
Yeah.
Whenever
Good.
you're not working, because I know you're a working man now.
Yeah, I have a family to feed. Okay, so
Tracy, you should sign up for this.
Thanks, Danny. Nelson, what system was that again?
it's just something I did in Python, and then I put together information from different websites. So then, because it depends on like which city you're in. Every county has like a different website for like storing all their property information. So then you combine it with online data about the owner, and then you can get all the information pretty much. So.
Nice. So you're basically SARS data scientist as well.
Exactly. It's my value add to the group.
Love it.
Wait, so what time are we starting?
James said
Pacific Standard is 5:15.
Yeah, James said
7:15.
Yeah.
Ah, okay.
We're waiting on James to get ready, basically.
Oh, I'm ready.
Oh, you're ready? Oh, you could.
Yeah, I didn't know I said 5:15. I thought I said 5.
Okay, well, in that
Cool.
case,
Turn on your camera, folks, for the panelists. Turn it on, and then Nelson do the official intro, and then we can begin.
Let me pop this in the group chats real quick.
Yep. And then so just kind of a little bit of notes, because everyone, we're doing a new thing with the Zoom right now, so we're trying to get used to it. So if you have questions for James, use the Q&A feature, and then we'll bring it up to James when it's appropriate time for him to answer the questions. Yeah. And later on during the Q&A, or you want to raise your hand and participate, just raise your hand, and then one of us will let you know who's up to talk. Okay.
Cool. All right, and we are live on Facebook. Perfect. Okay, so you guys ever curious about how people actually value your property? Well, anybody who's bought recently will have encountered this if you've taken out a loan or a refinance. Appraisals are kind of the most annoying part sometimes of the real estate industry. So we're going to talk with James Tran here as he talks about his experience and life as an appraiser. Since 2005, he's had a career in commercial real estate with an emphasis on property valuation, a skill that kind of made him an expert in this field. He's the CEO of JT Real Estate Services, JTREI, and James oversees the operations of several tiers of the company, from appraisals to sales, investing, consulting. Do you have employees, James, at this point? Do you just do everything yourself? He's also an experienced negotiator, veteran analyst in real estate, and has participated in real estate deals up to $40 million. So because of his breadth of experience and valuation, James also invests in real estate himself, with the most recent acquisition of a 70-unit apartment portfolio. He's been doing this for about 14 years in commercial real estate, and he also serves as an investment advisor, consulting or partnering with clients. So he's got a list of other things, but his main experience has been working for a lot of larger commercial real estate firms, and himself being an appraiser. He kind of knows his own way around the commercial side. So James, without further ado, can you tell us about how you started in real estate and why you got to where you are?
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yep, I'm good to go.
Okay. Yeah, so I started in real estate in undergrad, went to UC Irvine, and I interned for a real estate developer this developer, the heads of the company, the CEO and COO were former appraisers for 20, 30 years. And then they started this development company, which specialized in buying large apartment communities, 200, 300 units, and converting them into condominiums and then selling them off individually. So that was my first exposure into real estate in undergrad, and it was very interesting, and I saw how lucrative it was. So it was, fell in love there and decided to follow the footsteps of the owners there and jump into real estate appraisal. And with keeping in mind that I wanted to be an investor in the future. So what better way than to learn how to value every single type of property rather than rely on someone else to tell me what this thing is worth and what I could do with this thing. So that was my start.
Gotcha. Hey James, do you have camera on, by the way, or is
I tried to turn it on, but you cannot start your video because the host has stopped it.
Oh, what? Okay, let me try this. I'm gonna make you co-host. Can you try now?
Hey, that works.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Wow, this has been a lot more harder than I expected. All right, so aside from appraisals, everyone's trying to buy right now. So what is the hardest part? Because I know y'all are really backlogged. Any person that's trying to get a loan right now, appraisals are always the hardest part. What is causing this backlog?
What was that about backlog? What was the last thing you said?
Well, yeah, what's causing this backlog when it comes to appraisals, since that seems to be the part that takes the longest when trying to get a loan at the moment?
Yeah, well, I attribute it to, I think there's just a lot of pent up demand from the shutdown, the pandemic, and a lot of people sitting on the sidelines coming out with their dry powder, and they're purchasing, they're making moves, everyone got the itch. So there's a lot of transactions going on right now, in particular in residential. So work on both the residential and commercial end, and both sides are slammed busy right now. So yes, a lot of transactions, refinances, sales.
Okay. No, that makes sense. Anything else that's changed since coronavirus? Like, have y'all gone tighter? Because I know I've been hearing a lot of people missing the appraisal when it comes to trying to get a loan.
Sure. Well, that's must be other appraisers, because that doesn't happen here. And yeah, I only do commercial appraisals, but I mean, I've experienced it on the other side, being a real estate agent and representing buyers on the residential side. I've had deals that didn't appraise, and buyer ended up coming out of pocket and covering the difference. Either that, or they just had a large down payment, and they were able to just move forward anyways. And even though it's 20, 30K difference, they don't mind, because on the residential front in our local area here in the San Gabriel Valley, it seems like within a few months, $20,000, $30,000 is not like unheard of for the prices to increase in the area. And if you're not willing to shell out that money now and pay over that appraised value, and you wait a few months trying to save some money or find that deal, you're gonna miss out even more, and you're gonna be even more behind. So yeah, that's so it's not on the commercial side. I don't know I haven't heard so much of people not getting their appraised value. I don't think has been that competitive. On the residential side, yeah, I think that's fairly common now, that people are paying over the last comp that sold, and because of that, the appraisals don't come out, because appraisers are using historical data, transactions that have already occurred, to justify the value in the property. They might make a market condition adjustment, a minor one, to try to bring all the comps up, but it's not keeping pace, because there's just so many offers on one property, so much demand, that yeah, you're going to have that a lot right now on the residential side.
Okay, and then we had a question here. How much do appraisers take into account the Schedule E or Form 8825 when trying to evaluate the value of an asset? Or is that only based on, like, how do you on the commercial side, I know it's based on income. What do you use? Is it just like a general T12, or do you look at tax forms? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, so, well, yeah, either or both. You know, we'll look at Schedule E's or, you know, profit and loss statements. And for an income producing property, yeah, it's going to be one of the primary focuses. If it's a shopping center, you know, apartment community, of course, you know, we are gonna not just look at the Schedule E's and the historical expenses, but we're also going to compare with comparable properties, line by line expense items, as well as expense guides, just to, you know, some people run a tight ship with their properties, and some let it go, and, you know, they have like a water leak that's been there for like 2 years, and their utility bills are consistently high for 2 years. But just because it looks like consistently high, you know, it could just, you know, we have to recognize that, hey, that's out of market norm, what's going on here, and we still, you know, we still make our own pro forma, and sometimes we might not. Although most of the time we are relying and putting weight on the historical data to make our forecasts, we do deviate from that if it's if something seems out of the norm. Yeah.
Got it. Okay, so in a typical day, what does an appraiser do? Like, do you go out and still measure the properties if it's not residential, or are you only looking at the financial assessment at this point?
Yeah, our company, we measure every property. Well, I won't say every property. If there's building plans, like professional architectural plans, then we won't. But most of the time, we're measuring the property, and, you know, that's because there's, you know, we found many times that there's like additions to the property, unpermitted additions, and, you know, we have to be able to detect that. If our measurements are a lot different than what's shown on assessor's data or public records, and, you know, tend to dive in more and look through go to the city. I don't know, I can't speak for all firms, but I believe, you know, it is one of the due diligence items that an appraiser should be doing on the commercial side. And yeah, we'll dig through the historical permits and try to see if there was a permit for this additional area, and if not, we, you know, might not give it credit.
Okay, sounds good. All right, so let's go deeper then. I'm going to start pulling some questions from the Q&A, unless you got something to ask Annie to follow up on the story.
I would actually turn the questions back a little bit more toward about residential, because I know there's a lot of people in the group in here that are focusing on residential. And for myself, I'll be honest, I took an intro to the appraisal classes during last semester for a whole semester, and I don't know what the heck I learned. All I remember is highest and best use. So hoping that you can help, you know, refresh my mind, especially on these things. So for a lot of people, when they get their appraisals, they see, you know, you guys get your number, and but what are you guys looking for, and how are you getting these numbers? And tell us about how you're finding the comps and comparing one property to another. So for those that you guys are not familiar with it, if we can turn it back down to the residential side.
Sure. Yeah. So you know, speaking from as a commercial appraiser,
Mm-hmm.
You know, the residential appraiser likely just it's the value of your property, and residential's most of the time is focused on the sales comparison approach. And the idea there is, you know, what would a similar property with a similar location and physical characteristics, what have they sold for on like a per unit basis? And it's a theory of, you know, a replacement theory, if that's the exact appraisal term. So we're finding similar properties in your area that have sold, you know, and hopefully similar styles, and consider the, you know, the amount of land it has, building, and, you know, whether the year built, how updated it is versus not, and just doing a comparative analysis. You know, is this property better in this aspect or not, and just going down each physical item and making adjustments, and then ultimately we end up at a, you know, per square foot value range of across, like, you know, 3 to 5 comparables. for a home, and then just make a conclusion. Hopefully that range is tight, and we make a supportable conclusion based on transactions that have already occurred. Although we'll consider listings as well, but we won't put much weight on them.
Got it. Okay, yeah, someone actually asked that if you look at current or pending properties at all for appraisals, but you're saying they give less weight to that, much more to sold properties, right?
Generally speaking, yes. I mean, there's times when there's just no comps in the area and you have to go like really far out, and maybe you do have a listing there, and it just becomes some sort of indication. We'll call that the agent on that listing, and we'll feel them out, like how many offers have you got, and if we're lucky, they'll share like what offers they had, and we'll kind of use that as some indirect data points to try to get to a supportable value. Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
And then another question is, so you talked about looking for comparable comps for recently property sold, which is the most common way it's a really big important key of finding appraisals. Aside from using the recently sold, there are other ways that you can calculate how much this property can be appraised for, or other ways of calculating how much it's worth. Can you talk about the other methods that you guys use, like the gross rent multiplier, or the
placement,
the rental ones? Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So there's generally three approaches to value in appraisal. People have different terms for them, but in appraisal we call it the cost approach, which is, I think, what you're trying to say, Nelson, the replacement cost. So it considers the replacement cost of the property plus the land value. That's the cost approach. And there's the sales comparison approach, which is the commonly used valuation technique for single family homes or commercial properties that are owner occupied, just a single unit. And there's also the income approach. And under each of these valuation techniques, there's sub-valuation techniques. So the gross income multiplier method, that's you'll see some appraisers put that under the sales comparison approach, some under the income approach. I consider it under the income approach because we're considering the income on a property, on sold properties. And there's also the direct capitalization analysis, where we'll use a cap rate, which I think people are more familiar with, and apply that to like a net operating income estimate. So depending on what type of property that we're valuing, every day is in commercial, every day is different, right? So I could be appraising an industrial building one day, single tenant. Next day I could be appraising like a 100-unit apartment building, or or a baseball stadium. So each, and also too, if that baseball stadium is leased versus it's not leased, like the whole like technique changes and where we put emphasis. So yeah, you mentioned the gross income multiplier. That's commonly used for smaller multifamily, where we're looking at the annual annual income of a scheduled income of a property, and we're taking the sale price, dividing by that, and coming up with a like income multiple like factor. And it's in a way similar to cap rates, except the gross income multiplier doesn't consider expenses. So we're just taking income at the time of sale of other comparable properties, taking the sale price, dividing by that, and coming up with this range. And based on how the subject property compares to these other gross income multiplier comps, will go towards the middle, towards the top, and that's how that one. That's how we use that technique. So there's just a lot of ways. And in the income approach, you have also a discounted cash flow, which is much more complicated, used for institutional type assets. Probably safe to say like any property that's like $10 million like value plus, and we're projecting income and expenses, for the entire holding period, year by year. And yeah, but there's just so many more variables in that we don't use that every day in the type of properties that we're appraising here.
Yeah, I imagine those take a lot longer. It's like an hour or something. So
Yeah.
quick question, actually, you were saying like if it's leased or not leased, the price changes. Do you know what physical properties homeowners can do to increase their property value? Someone asked, like, would adding concrete in their backyard increase the value, or is a new wood fence on the side going to increase house value? Because like, what happens if there's no comps for that in the neighborhood and they just went ahead and did that? Would they be able to justify it with the appraiser that, hey, this should be worth more? Or
so for those examples, again, I can't speak for a residential appraiser, but I would venture to guess that it wouldn't. At least, if I was doing a residential appraisal, I wouldn't add much value to that. They have to be the type of improvements that the market as a whole, or a general buyer for that home, if you were to pull like 100 buyers, if they would see value in that one improvement. So actually, the answer could change depending on what area you're in too. Let's see. So an example might be a garage. I think it's in the Midwest. I think it's more important, or there's more valuable to have a garage because it snows over there, and to be able to park your car inside and and then warm up your car in the garage. I think this is in Oklahoma. I heard this. There's a lot more value there to having a garage or insulated garage than over here in California, sunny California. So,
as a Chicagoan, I agree with that statement. It's a premium.
Yeah.
You don't have to wake up at 7 a.m. every morning and scrape off your car. Then
yes, that's what it was. Yeah.
It's worth the extra $100 a month, whatever it is. So.
Yeah. So yeah, it really depends. But the ones that are most common that'll add value to your home is popping on a new roof, upgrading the plumbing, copper plumbing, replacing the main sewer line, things that cost a lot and that every homeowner is gonna need, and it's not special to your one property. Yeah. And kitchens and bathrooms, those are nice too. Those always tend to increase value.
All right, following up on more of the questions now. Anthony Chow asks, hey, James, as an appraiser, when buyers provide recent comps in an area, is that something you look at, consider? Okay, never mind. That's basically, do you consider comps that a buyer will show you? Or is it something you would only take yourself? Like you're trying to be an independent third party, right?
I mean, we'll accept them. Most appraisers will just accept them, whether or not they look at them or they end up in the trash can is a different story. It does cause, like, we are doing our own research at the end of the day, and I guess it shouldn't sway, but it might sway the appraiser if they know what you're looking at, and if it looks reasonable, then I personally would consider it. And there is some subjectivity in appraisal. It's not an exact science. Depending on which appraiser you ask, he might give you a different answer, but I think there's a bit of art to it and subjectivity. At the end of the day, after you do all these calculations and whatnot, you still have this range of value that it can fall in. So being a homeowner or a seller, I'd do whatever I could to try to make sure it falls in the upper end of that subjective range. So, do
you appraise only in California then, or?
Yeah, I myself have. I've had colleagues that fly out of state, and that's all they do. They'll do triple net type properties, and so the comps will be nationwide.
So how do you do for something that's like a state where they don't disclose sale price? Because like in Texas, for example, you're not supposed to disclose what it sells for. So how do you figure out your comps then?
Yeah, well, I heard that. I'm not certain, but I heard that people guard their data over there, so they'll probably take brokers out for coffee or whatnot and try to get that data, and they'll just store in their database and just guard it with their life and not share with anyone else. I guess, if you have the data over there and you're somehow able to get it and verify it with someone who is part of that transaction, like a primary source, you probably have an advantage over someone who's just starting off over there who doesn't have any data. And so sources like I think, well, I haven't really looked at CoStar over there, but they try to get the data too, so it might be on there. Although it's not on public records, it might be on these third-party services.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So James, I have a question for you. So as a buyer, I'm always scared that my house won't appraise or my property won't appraise, because then for the value that I'm buying it at, otherwise I won't get the loan. So I'm curious to know, when you're doing these appraisals, do you actually get to see our purchase agreement contract or something and know what is our loan amount? And if you do, will that persuade you to kind of go one way or another? Like how far do you stay away from actually knowing our loan value and price?
Yeah, so purchase price, we as appraisers, if we're appraising the property for current pending transaction, we are required under our USPAP regulations. It stands for Uniform Standards of Appraisal Practice. We are required to analyze the pending sale. So we will get a copy of the purchase agreement, and we have to make the conclusion at the end of our appraisal whether that purchase price is supportable or not. So yeah, we will get that price. We might not have the loan amount all the time, and when I do, I myself, I don't look at it. So that's just extraneous information for me that it does kind of make the job harder. If this number is going to make or break the deal, sometimes not knowing that is better. It takes a little pressure off.
Gotcha. Okay, next question. So someone's already doing commercial real estate. Would you recommend they get their appraisal license in order to add value as an agent?
It takes a really long time to get your appraisal license. The fastest you can get that is 3 years, at least, to get the commercial license. Most people do it in 5. It's pretty intense, and unless you have this drive to want to be an appraiser for some reason, looking back, I wouldn't recommend it. I mean, I learned a bunch, and I don't regret it. I don't know if I would do it again. I'd probably just, if I was a commercial agent, or just stay a commercial agent, and maybe take some of the other courses, and become a CCIM designated broker. But yeah, I probably wouldn't go through the whole shebang of trying to get your appraisal license if just for sales, to be an agent.
Gotcha. Okay, so for grandfathered in properties, are appraisals harder to get because, for example, someone's saying if you have a commercial building that has fire sprinklers that was grandfathered in and it didn't have the sprinklers, how do you get comps, especially because it wasn't required back then, but it is now? So how do you subtract that, I guess, from a building?
Oh, yeah, I mean, I've yet to dive into that level of detail in selecting comps. Oh, this building doesn't have a sprinkler, so I'm not going to use it. But again, that might be a local thing where maybe it's not as big of a deal. But if it is, yeah, you can always make an adjustment for that. Make that consideration and adjust the value of each comp. So if it has sprinklers and you don't, then you can always bring the value of those comps down, depending how the market reacts to building with sprinklers versus not. So
yeah, it's NOI based still, right? If you're, for example, my family, we do restaurants. If the building doesn't have sprinklers already, we're not going to pay a higher rent, right? So whether or not they add the infrastructure for us will determine how much we're willing to pay for rent, which then determines how much income that the landlord earns from us being tenants, basically. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, especially if the property is leased and there's a long-term tenant there, then the most probable buyer you mentioned highest and best use earlier, Annie. The most probable buyer would be an investor. And so, yeah, it's focused on NOI in that case. Yeah.
Okay, Vincent Flaw asks, what are the most common software tools you've seen used for your appraisals?
Software tools. So I know a lot of appraisers just use Excel and Word. And there's other systems out there that allow you to merge the data from Excel spreadsheet over to Word, so that you're just entering the information once. Like if you have the address of the property or the APN, you just type it in once and you're able to create like templates where put field codes all over the place. And so you enter it once and then it goes into the report all throughout the report, and it saves a bunch of time. There's ones like Narrative One, Data Appraise. I know the larger firms like CBRE, they have their own custom made software solutions, like programs just for their company. So yeah, but a lot of appraisers still use like Excel and Word and copy and paste techniques.
I think he's probably mentioning the software or the websites that you use to pull out the comps too.
Okay. Yeah, so for comps on the commercial side, CoStar is the most like notable database. Their data isn't the most always the most accurate, but it's the one that people go to the most. They're pretty good at tracking sales transactions that have occurred, but when you get into like the minute like details of the transaction or the characteristics of the property, their information might not always be the best. So we try to cross-check with other ones. Here locally, there's also we have AIR. So they are particularly good with office and industrial data. And some people will use LoopNet, but that's also owned by CoStar. So it's essentially the same information. And then you have public records like stuff with CoreLogic, RealQuest, or Realist, and just a general assessor's data.
And how about the cost approach when you're looking at how much it costs to build a building? How do you guys get the construction costs or estimate to get your numbers?
Yeah, so most appraisers will rely on a cost valuation service. So the most notable one is the Marshall valuation service. They used to be called Marshall and Swift. They have, I think they have digital versions on their website, but otherwise they have this like thick manual that has like per square foot or per unit cost for like every type of building. And there's different adjustment factors depending on where the building's like location. The cost might be higher in some areas to get those materials. So that's most of the time what appraisers will rely on first. And we also keep track of when we're doing like proposed construction projects, like a proposed single family residence, we'll usually get the construction cost breakdown from the borrower, and it'll be from like a developer. And we'll save those. So there'll be construction costs comps as well. So we can break those down on a per square foot basis and use that to support the cost approach, and interview actual contractors. And yeah, it's pretty limitless what kind of support we can use. But most of the time, appraisers will rely on the Marshall valuation service because it's so easy to look up any type of property.
All right, next question is from Tracy. What's the most productive and effective way for an investor to contest an appraisal? What resources or data would you want people to provide?
Yeah, the best way to do that is to provide comparables. Yeah, and I guess your reasoning. So I'd probably send an email with those comparables and your reasoning for each comparable, and maybe if you want to challenge the comparables used in the appraisal, maybe why you think each comparable that was used might not be a good comparable. Just reasoning that the appraiser can evaluate and pretty much defend himself on each point. So that's the best way to go. A lot of times, I haven't heard more so recently, but in the beginning, you get a lot of borrowers that call and like they just make like a general statement like, oh, you're like way off, and but then there's no support, and it's like, what are we going to do with that? Just so that happens a lot. It's a thankless industry. being an appraiser, you get like shitted on, and I can imagine too, because I'm a broker, so I'm on the other side too, so so I can say this pretty easily.
You ever been like, that damn appraiser? Oh wait, that was me.
You look at like the obstacle, like you have to get past this dude. But it's most of the time where you're in place to protect the lender on a lending based transaction, to make sure that their collateral is there if things go south, and they can sell the property with enough spread and whatnot. So
right. And then for the single family residential folks, when you're doing your comparables, you want to fight against them, it's useless to give them whatever the listing price is going on, just telling you it's for sold and it's recently sold, because the listing it doesn't mean a thing. And also when it's for sold, often you have to look at under what circumstances was the property sold. Was it being sold for a family member at a discounted price or inherited or something? Because there are factors that can affect the sales price. So appraisals, residential appraisals do a lot more than what you guys can see. Just telling you guys up for that.
A lot of detail that goes into an appraisal and will make your head spin, particularly if you're not like a detailed person, which I wasn't to begin with. If you get into the industry, you learn to be super detailed about everything.
Okay, so Andrew Cheng asked, we're in a super hot market. There's not even a tiny percentage that you consider of like current properties at all, or is it like 100% only sold comps? I think we're really pushing this question a lot.
Yeah, again, I'm glad I'm on the commercial side, and I can always give my default statement. As a commercial appraiser, I can only speak for, I can only guess from a residential guy's perspective, but I don't think it's one way, like 100%, or I would consider the listings, but at the end of the day, it has to be like a supportable value, and the buyers also have to understand that when the appraiser is coming up with a value for your property and a report, that report is going to get reviewed by the bank's internal appraiser too. So they have to make sure that they dot their I's, cross their T's, and they don't do anything funky, because there's a second person that's reviewing this appraisal who's also an appraiser, and you want to keep getting work, and you don't want to look like you're pushing the value. So most of the time, they'll be looking at putting the focus on closed sales. There's extraordinary circumstances, of course, and you can write lengthy justification for why in this particular instance we have to put more weight on the listing because there's no sales in the area. So it's always, I wouldn't say it's always based on closed sales. There's circumstances where that's where it's hard to just do that. So
Gotcha. All right. No, that makes sense. Sam asked, if there's no good comps in the area, what's your typical approach for single family rentals? Namely because I guess we talked about the other two methods, but I don't think income approach is allowed on single family rentals. And I thought it was like, you need to have sold comps on residential side.
Yeah, I believe you do. I don't think there's a way around that. So the appraiser will, if there's no comps in an area, recent comps, then we always have the option of going back in time. So maybe further back in time than we normally would. I think the rule of thumb in residential is like going back like 6 months or something. So maybe they'll have to go back a year or 2 years, or maybe they'll have to go outside the area, outside the market, and try to make a adjustment for the location and try to support the location adjustment based on, if you find an identical house that's two cities away, but it's a recent sale, you're able to support a location adjustment by going back in time to when there were two identical properties in these two different locations, and the only difference between the two properties were location. All the physical characteristics were the same. You can see what the difference was in the sale price, presumably attributed to that location. And you could come back and use that recent sale in that city that's far away and just make that one location adjustment because everything else is similar. That's probably what would happen in that case.
Okay, also not to single anyone out, but what if you have a cabin in the middle of Tennessee that you're trying to purchase and get a loan on, where there's nothing nearby? Not that anyone in here is doing that. How do you appraise something where it's like not even close to a nearby city and it's just like a cabin that's a little far off?
So is that you, Annie? I saw you react to that.
No, that's Danny, but
yeah, it's my brother Danny, not Annie, but my Sarah brother.
Right, not to single anyone out though. Yeah, it's this similar response to the last question. Well, in that case, then probably put some more weight on the cost approach, right? How much it's going to cost to build that cabin? What's the land value of that particular cabin, and what's the cost to rebuild that cabin? And at least that's like one data point, and you couple that with the shitty comps, and you kind of look at what each method, like the value that each method produces, and you reconcile all that. And you like lean one way or another depending on how good the data is in one approach versus another. And what property type is it? Is it unique? Is it leased? So
gotcha.
Yeah, again, that's why we have all these different like methods to kind of come up with back into the value and at least get within the target area. And it's not like the most in that case, the best, the most, I would say the most reliable value, but we try our best to get to that point of it being reliable.
All right, Anley asked, have you seen banks accept any appraisals after closing, either for refi or new acquisition? On the commercial side, this has not been seen at all for her, but she understands that OCC rules are allowing for deferred appraisals by banks to assess the appraisal. She's just trying to figure out what the appraisal environment is at the moment. So
I haven't heard of that. If it is going on, but I can't say with 100% confidence that that's not going on.
Gotcha. All right, Munya asked, is it possible to appraise way over the neighborhood average? Like if some investors go in and then they try to purchase significantly over the neighborhood comps, and for some reason the appraiser trips and falls and writes an extra zero, what happens then? Is there an issue with that you have to worry about? How do they do this for residential?
Aside from tripping and falling and getting injured, I don't see that happening. In particular, if you're getting a loan, a federally regulated loan, I don't see that happening. There's just too many people that look at this report in the banks and to allow that to happen. And you have also AMCs too, so it's not going to happen.
No worries. Anthony Chow, I think this is on our last question. So, never mind, there's another one.
No, we got more in the group chat.
Oh, we have more in the group chat? Oh, I didn't.
I'll take care of you. Don't worry, got those.
Multitasking. Oh man. Okay, so Anthony is in the middle of a HELOC. The bank performed a desktop appraisal that came in 50,000 below purchase. So in the Bay Area, and it's 50,000 below his purchase price in 2019. So he asked for an actual appraisal, and now they're doing a drive-by appraisal. Should he be concerned and ask for a full appraisal? So
let me make sure I understand the question. The bank performed a desktop appraisal. So I don't know if an appraiser performed a desktop appraisal, or maybe their in-house appraiser did an appraisal?
Yeah, someone went on Redfin instead of actually looking at the property, and then they priced it at 50,000 below purchase price from 2019, 2 years ago. So now, should he get the actual appraisal, or is a drive-by appraisal going to be good enough?
Yeah, I don't know the Bay Area well enough to say, but if there's, to answer that question, if there's something in the home, if the home is like highly improved, and you think that it would influence the appraiser from by walking through the home, maybe they get wowed and whatnot, then I would do that. Pay for the full appraisal. If there's some reason that you think you're gonna change that from just change an appraisal from just that's just looking at the outside of the property, or from Google Street Scenes, and I would definitely do that and take the risk of paying for that.
All right, next question is from Matthew Wu. And then, I'm glad Matthew is here because he's going to be helping us with our first year meetup on May 22nd at 11 o'clock. So from Matthew, he says, for his fourplex, all of his appraisals, which are usually for initial purchases and refis, the appraiser only used the comp method and not the income method. And he wants to know, was there a reason for this?
Well, I know in residential, 4 units and below, are considered residential properties, and it is very common that residential appraisers will just use a sales comparison approach, even if you have 4 units that are leased out. I've gotten a few fourplex appraisals from commercial lenders to do, and I've considered the gross income multiplier, and I've also used a direct capitalization method, and just to see what the values were there. So I don't know why, it's just common, I guess. I mean, residential appraisers, they're not familiar with going through the direct capitalization method, and some not familiar with using the gross income multiplier as well. So, I think a tip might be to go check out a commercial lender. They might not be as competitive, but if you really need, for some reason, and the value of your property you think is going to be higher once you consider the income, if they get a commercial appraiser in there, then I think they would consider that. And particularly if you're in a rent controlled area like a city of LA, I think it's really important that you consider the income there, because one property might be 50% below market, and another property, everything else is like physically similar, location similar, but the rents might be really close to market. There's a huge difference in value because of that, and it's not captured if you're just using the sales comparison approach. So, unfortunately, that's how residential appraisers appraise.
Right. And James, this is related to Yik's question, actually. So you have your multiple methods and you have different values using these different methods. So how do you find this final evaluation? Are you taking those 4 values and evenly divided by 4 and get your average, or are you giving more weight to a certain type of evaluation?
Yeah. So the answer to that question is based on the common answer in appraisal for a lot of questions is it depends. So it depends on, again, if what type of property that is, and most important, I think the biggest thing is is it leased. So who's the most probable buyer for that property? As appraisers, we're trying to mirror the market. So if a property is under a 10-year lease, then like say, even if it's a single family home, hypothetically, you're not going to really see a 10-year lease on a single family home. The most probable buyer for that would be an investor. So we're going to be focusing on the income approach and how much rent that home can get, how above and below market that rent is. So, but if that same home is not leased, or if there's only like 6 months left on the lease, then the most probable buyer becomes a homeowner, and we're putting more emphasis on the sales comparison approach and what value that approach produces. So it depends from assignment to assignment, like very and then even after that, there's no like scientific method like, oh, we're gonna do 10% here, and well, some appraisers will do that, 10% to this approach, but we'll weight this approach 10% and 90% on this approach, and we'll take that number. But for me, it's like you have your values from each approach. As long as you conclude in that range somewhere, you're technically your value is supported. But some might argue you could have been more reliable had you leaned more toward one approach or another. So yeah, I try to do the best I can, and stay consider what type of property, what's going on, who the most probable buyer is, and what they would do in that situation, and weight accordingly.
Okay, so not necessarily an appraisal question, but in honor of Asian Pacific Islander Month, what is it like being Asian in the commercial real estate industry? Because I want to follow up with this question later, which is someone asked about an article where appraisers might sometimes be racist and purposely lower the values. Should we put up pictures of white people around our house? And that's just an overarching question to get back to what is it like being Asian within the commercial real estate industry?
I don't, personally, I don't think I've, I haven't noticed much difference. I recall I signed well, no, this is for an appraisal. So I met with this industrial broker like about 2 months ago. You probably know where I'm going with this story. But yeah, I met with them. We were talking at the property at this industrial building, and we were talking about COVID and what's going on, and he's just talking to me nonchalantly, and he brought up he said the China virus, like to me, like do you like see? Can you guess what ethnicity I might be, or if I might be remotely offended by that? He's just talking to me all like, just didn't even like. I didn't even bat an eye, like yeah. Other than that, like I don't think I've really noticed any difference being Asian. I mean, people, I do get the sense sometimes that people think that I'm younger than I am, and you'll come in at one of their initial questions would be like, how long have you been doing this? I used to get that a lot, and I remember in the beginning when I started appraising, like that would like. It made me get all like nervous, like, oh shit, like they're on to me, like, and I'd like be thinking about it the whole time I'm like doing this like valuation. But yeah, so other than age and racist comments from time to time, I don't think there's much difference I've noticed being Asian.
Did you ever lie and you're like, I'm 45, or have you also ever gone into a household that's like Asian family and you're like, I'm just gonna give them a little 10% higher, is that?
This is live on Facebook, right?
Oh, no. We're talking about
absolutely not. No, you don't do that here.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay. Let's see.
All right, so Matthew has another question. So as you're doing for appraisals, are there different types of appraisers who say they specialize in a certain type of property or a certain type of industry for commercial properties? And if so, can they actually ask for someone, say, hey, I need someone to appraise this, I don't know, a restaurant or something? Can you do that?
Yeah, you can. In commercial, I think on the bank will usually put the appraisal assignment out for bid to like several appraisers. And they'll usually consider each appraiser's what area they cover and their specialty. And I think you could pick from a list based on like what they bid, like how much they bid for the job and how long they're estimating to get the job done. And, I mean, sometimes it can add notes like, yeah, we've appraised a lot of restaurants in this area. Or you could request it from the get-go. yeah, it's still, I think, more flexible in commercial, trying to select an appraiser than it is in residential, where, you know, AMC just pick someone, at least from my understanding.
Cool. All right, next question is from Vincent. So he asked, within the past year, have you seen or heard any rumors on any greater emphasis on certain types of leases, such as triple net leases on appraised commercial real estate properties? He's asking this because he said he's seen speculation in the news or on potential inflation levels that haven't been seen in decades. So he feels that maybe potentially triple net leases can theoretically hedge against this type of inflation.
Yeah, yeah, it's actually just, you know, we were talking about this, my colleague here the other day, and yeah, we are noticing more owners asking on their asking rents for spaces they're advertising. They are asking for triple net in areas that historically have been more like a modified gross leases. And yeah, it's to cover their ass. And excuse me, if you know, particularly in California, you know, there was talks about tax laws changing and getting rid of we have a Proposition 13 here, which limits the annual tax assessment reassessment to no more than 2% of the year before, unless there's a sale, some kind of transfer or construction done to a property. So that's kind of kept the values in California at bay. But if they got rid of that, then, you know, if things were started getting reassessed at market value every year, then the owner would eat the cost of that tax if they had a modified gross lease where, you know, they're responsible for paying for property taxes. So yeah, they try to shift along with the you know, hedging against inflation. Yeah, triple net does protect the owner from dramatic increases in insurance or property taxes.
So would that affect then, say, like cap rates? If you have something that's like a, you know, if you have, you know, two buildings in the same location, and then they have essentially equivalent tenants, and then you know, the only difference is one is triple net and the other one's got like gross. Would that affect valuations based on cap rate?
Yeah, I mean, it might not be like detectable, but yeah, theoretically it should, because, you know, what goes into a cap rate is not just, you know, the security of that income, whether that tenant is, you know, a high risk of default or not, but also management intensity. If you have a you know, triple net lease, there's less that you as the owner have to do, particularly if, you know, the tenant's getting the bills directly. It's more, it becomes more passive, and yeah, on the income side, there's more surety that your income is going to be fixed, and there's not going to be a large like insurance increase. Some hurricane comes through, like in Texas or something, and it's a Hurricane Harvey, and then the insurance rates like shot up, or Florida, and all of a sudden your cash flow that you projected for the next 10 years, like just your whole like model just changes. All of a sudden the value of your property changes. So
yeah. That makes sense.
Speaking of triple net leases, so what do you do when you have a lease that's like a graduated lease where every year it goes up by an X%, or say it's something like in a mall where the rent is based on their gross sales, or like a percentage of the gross sales? How will you calculate that within your income approach?
Yeah, so if we're valuing a mall, then we would most likely be using a discounted cash flow, and we putting like most weight on there, and that's again a sub approach to the income approach. So in that case, we can model with that level of detail, like what the increase in rent's going to be next year, and the third year and the fourth year, and also, you know, with the percentage leases, we can look at we'll usually request the historical sales receipts of the store, just to see how it's performed and kind of be able to forecast into the future how sales are going to be, and, you know, do a percentage of that and add that into, come up with the value via the discounted cash flow.
Gotcha. All right. I think that's it for our questions. We went a full hour of just people asking and blasting you with mostly residential appraisal questions, unfortunately, but you handle them really well. Really, thank you for that, James. And appreciate your story about what it's like, I guess, being Asian in the commercial real estate industry. I think I've encountered a little bit of the same, just like people make offhand comments and then you're just like, yeah. But
it might be different because I'm in California and it's like a melting pot over there. Yeah, it might be different.
Texas is Texas is its own animal, but
right.
Thank you again for your time. I don't think we have any more questions. Thank you everyone for showing up, and we'll be uploading this shortly. Any other closing statements, Annie?
Yep. So before I let you guys all go, we have a couple of announcements to make because a lot of you guys didn't go to our birthday party. So I'm kind of sad about that. But so year one is over for SARE. We have over 6,800 members. And we did this because we were a bunch of bored Asian millennials that really like real estate. But now in year two, now that COVID is getting better, we are getting ready to get out there to meet you guys. That's going to be a lot of fun. So I want to give you guys some heads up on upcoming events that we have. So we're going to have a couple of meetups down in SoCal, starting with May 13th in San Gabriel Valley. So I'm hoping James will show up and say hi to Jason Frass, because I haven't seen him in real life. And then May 20th, we're going to have another meetup, also with Jason scheduling that in downtown LA. And then on May 22nd, I'm having a battle against Matthew over for Orange County versus Bay Area. So we're going to do some lunch on that day and see who gets more people to come. You guys better come over up here. And then also we're doing something a lot bigger that we're planning for the next couple months. Will be end of June. Nelson is going to lead our very first official SARE field trip. So exactly. So I don't know if you guys have been reading the news lately, but Apple is planning to open up a campus over in North Carolina. So Nelson and Jason will be heading down over there and checking the area out. So if anyone wants to join in and make it official, come on and let us know. Let Nelson know it's going to be end of June. And I have a special guest that's going to be taking you guys around, showing you what's fun there, and telling you what to invest in. So be on the lookout for that. And toward the second half of the year, we're hoping we can schedule another one of these field trips for potentially Dallas and Austin and Houston. So let's see if we can get enough members interested. So if you are, let me know. So that's pretty much all the biggies that I have. Nelson, anything else?
Nope, that's it. And then we were thinking about covering the housing for the field trips, but everyone else got to cover your own flight, right? That's I think
we're covering for housing. Do you not know how? No. SARE's covering housing?
Are we?
No,
no.
Unless you have a SARE member who can take 10 of us in a single room, maybe Nelson's house in Austin for a buying for, and we'll do a sleepover.
But no, not in North Carolina yet. I have to follow up with the person. She runs like an Airbnb company, so I gotta follow up on that. But hopefully see some of y'all in North Carolina. If you're interested, shoot me a DM and I'll add you to the group chat that we're currently planning right now. So
cool. Yeah, we need to figure out how many people are going, because if we need to book you guys like a SARE tour, Asian tour bus with karaoke or something, we have to know how many heads are coming.
Yeah. Right. Cool. Well, have a good night. Thank you all for showing up. Bye now.
All right. See you guys soon. Take care, everyone. Thanks, James.
Thanks for having me. Bye.
Bye-bye.